Girls of Reddit, what things do guys do to impress you that make you cringe? One time a guy was showing me some picture he took on his phone. As he is scrolling, tons of nudes from other girls pop up in his camera roll. Like, WTF dude, this is our first date. I don't want to see sketchy pictures like that. At least save them to another album. He wanted to show off how much a player he was, so you'd be jelly. When they try to impress me with their knowledge without taking my own into consideration. For example, this guy recently tried hitting on me in a parking lot. He then started giving me bad car advice, and it was obvious I knew more than him in mechanics. I'm a grad student. I've had guys try to explain my own research system to me. Immediately bragging or showing off within 5 minutes of conversation. That includes how much you make, your job, etc. One guy at a bar last week grabbed my arm to shout in my ear, "I had cancer when I was a kid." Yeah, don't do that. I think you would enjoy the movie 50/50. Tell me how many girls they have slept with. Most of the time they are lying, and if they aren't then EWW. Willy pics. I'm 37, on OkCupid, and 2 days ago a dude tried to send me one a day after we'd exchanged phone numbers to arrange a date. He is in his late 30s early 40s. Seriously dude, we haven't even met. WTF. Bash on women. It literally makes no sense, but it's so common. Crap talk my so as if that'll make me change my mind and hop on your willy instead. Hey baby, lose the zero and go with a hero, winks and makes gun gesture with click sound. He wore a shirt with 2 arrows pointing to his biceps that said "Welcome to the gun show." Cringe and laugh. Flaunting their wealth. I'm sure that is a turn on for some girls, but for me and most people I know, it just screams douchebag. Crazy driving. Maybe once I've known you for a while and understand that you have total control of your car, I'll be more comfortable with you driving fast and reckless. But until then, showing me how you can drift around a corner just makes me think you're being reckless with my life. Please stop. But the handbrake turns. I was told it worked. The biggest one for me is lying about the things he's into just because I said I was into those things. If you've never seen Blade Runner, for example, don't say you have just because it's my favorite film. I can always tell when they're lying about this and I don't think it's sweet. Another thing is demanding to pay for everything. I appreciate when guys pay, but I like to pay once in a while too. This isn't the 1950s and I have a job, so let me treat sometimes. I love Blade Runner. Wesley Snipes is such a badass. I once went on a second date with a guy who came to pick me up. I live in apartments and try to be super considerate of my neighbors all the time. As soon as I get in his car he starts revving his engine super loud. A, I'm not impressed by that whatsoever, and B, I'm sure none of my neighbors appreciated the noise. That was our last date. When they say, I could be with any girl right now, but I chose you. God bless you. OMG, so blessed. When guys give me a resume, or tell me why I should date them. I'm real buff, I'll treat you real nice. I make lots of money, I'll buy you gifts. Like I'm some sort of a shallow brainless twit that is looking to hire a boyfriend. I got my Magnum condoms. I got my wad of hundreds. I'm ready to plow. I dropped my monster condom for my Magnum dong. A man once bragged about how many women he had slept with, and without transition, asked me out on a date. He went from talking about Pound Town to asking me downtown. It was, sadly, not a joke. I don't like loud obnoxious guys. Sure, if we're at a bar and you're drunk and yelling, that's one thing. But to just be loud and obnoxious all the time embarrasses me. If we're getting coffee, the people at the other end of the patio shouldn't know what we're talking about. Went out with a dude I got set up with. He seemed okay, albeit not my type. But I'm like, whatever. We'll eat and have an alright time. Nope. We get to the restaurant and as soon as Latina waitress leaves, he starts spewing all of this garbage about Mexicans, saying they're lazy and that he wanted a new server. Awful. I just looked at him, went lamento T seemed too sassy, and broke out of there. TL. DR. Racism does not make me hot. Translated, I'm sorry you feel that way. Stone cold. They ask me if they can help me with my math homework because I'm holding a math book. I then explain to them that I'm a college professor and don't need their help. Equating their worth or validity as a human being with their car in any way whatsoever. Its make, its model, its size, etc. I once had someone introduce themselves to me as I'm so and so. I drive a Lamborghini. He was bright, intelligent, charming, successful, and didn't have a clue about himself. I was trying to figure out what kind of name so and so is for a little too long. If a guy is trying to impress me, I'm probably too busy being impressed that they're making the effort. Having said that, the last guy to chat me up kept bringing up the fact that he's read all the Game of Thrones books and so is never surprised by the TV show. I failed to see why this was such a huge point of pride, but I guess literacy is never a bad thing. Oh my god, Lana, read a book. I once had a guy tell me way too many giraffe jokes, but I forgave him. He was hot. I try to avoid giraffe jokes, not just on dates either, because I'm always worried the joke will be way over someone's head, and then I would feel bad. 1. For some reason at the university I go to, it's a really big thing for guys to brag about how broke they are. This is almost always at the bars where they are spending copious amounts of money on drinks. Oh man, I'm so broke. I have like no money and that's why I'm drinking hams all night. It's not impressive, and coming from a low income background it pisses me off. No, you are not broke, and if you are it's only because you're walking around in expensive clothes and going to bars every night. People who are actually dirt poor do not brag about it. Why is this a thing to brag about? 2. Trying to act like they know more about a subject than they really do. People know when you're boasting. I respect people more for humbly saying I don't actually know very much about that so I can't comment. In the same vein, acting like there's no possible way I could know more about math or science or politics than them because I have tea and a vagina. 3. Wow, girls who look like you usually aren't this smart. Good for you. Why would you want to worry your pretty little head with grad school negging? Is not a good strategy for picking up quality women. Move on to the fall over drunk ones who are barely coherent enough to notice how awful you are if you want to continue these actions. The whole "but I'm a nice guy" act. If you really were a nice guy you wouldn't have to tell me that. There was a guy at my college for a semester that would lift his shirt and show girls his third nipple. We all thought he had Asperger's, so it was really painful to watch. Follow me around the gym and strategically place yourself where I can see you lift. I'm busy, bro. Also, to the one guy who found it necessary to do one-armed rows right at the foot of my bench with 100-pound dumbbells. You drop it on my foot I will end you. Not impressive. Annoying as frick. Try to sound too intelligent in conversation texts by throwing in an excess amount of uncommonly used words. Usually this happens discussing things I like, as if they're trying to one-up me on their knowledge of the topic or impress me with the fact they like it too. Guys at the gym that start grunting and thrusting dramatically while working out when a female is present. Pick up a guitar during a party and play Wonderwall. For your information, I am not a girl, but I cringe when guys thinks that would actually impress a girl. This might just be me, but talking about how much you work out. Sometimes it's not even subtle. In the middle of a conversation about Harold and Kumar, please don't shout, and I can bench press, like, 130 pounds. I just thought you should know. Also, sending a friend over to talk to me for you. I thought that sort of thing would stop well after high school. I'm amazed how many guys my age still do this. Shyness can be sweet, but really, I'm not going to eat you. Also, please don't tell me that for a girl. I'm actually really cool. If you bench 130, you're not telling anyone about it. When I didn't have a 360, I played the Mass Effect series at the rec center at my school. In the heat of a battle in ME2, this bespectacled young man sits next to me and informs me that I'm using my sniper rifle wrong. It's okay, though, because he's here to help. Actually, people have paid him for his video gaming advice before, so I'm lucky I'm getting it for free. Spoiler, as if that weren't obnoxious enough, though, he talked all the way through the cutscene where Legion joins your party. What's the most uncomfortable situation a nice guy has put you in? A nice guy took my suitcase from me as I was walking down the stairs under the pretext of helping. He wouldn't give it back to me, instead saying he would help take it to my bus. I kept telling him I was fine. He could give it back. I got it from here. But no. Of course he sat me in, holding my suitcase in the aisle as I was forced to take the window seat. He kept telling me he could get me booze. I was underage and didn't give a crap. I just wanted to go home. I even tried getting off a stop, or 2, or 3, early, but he insisted we take the bus to where he parked his car so he could drive me. I was terrified. Luckily I texted my uncle, who met us at the end of the bus line. Air Force guy. The nice guy couldn't give me my suitcase fast enough. The whole "I'm going to help you even if you never asked for it" or straight up said no thing pisses me off, but the rest of the story got creepy real fast. Second date. A nice guy surprise proposed me in a mall surrounded by too many people. Oh god. Too soon. At least wait until the third date. I was trying to leave a frat party and the two guys guarding the closet claimed it was house rule that a girl has to give them her number to get their coats. This was not a place I was familiar with, and it was a narrow hallways tucked out of the way from the rest of the party. They were larger than me, drunk AF, and kept trying to sweet talk me into staying upstairs with them instead because they're so nice. Since they had been so nice to make sure no one stole our things at the party, we had to pay them back. One guy even said I could just flash him instead. I gave them my number, and when a guy started to text me I only responded with Spider-Man memes until he gave up. Literally never saw them again. I only responded with Spider-Man memes until he gave up. Best thing ever. Last semester of college I had a class with this weird and obviously desperate, but super awkward and negative guy. He acted really fake to boot. He always tried talking to me, but his intentions were super obvious, aka women are not human. They are this elusive thing and I need to catch one of them one day. I ran into the guy at the college shuttle. He said hi to me, and I did respond with a simple hi. I didn't really know him, so I left it at that. He sat behind me and starts audibly and angrily muttering to himself about how girls don't pay attention to him and that he just tries and tries so hard yada yada yada, that he's being nice, but they'll just be, etc. It was so uncomfortable and he kept bitching the whole time. I wasn't physically reacting OFC. The guy was probably around not only when the dinosaurs were born but when dirt became a thing. He was super nice and calm, but no was not an answer for him. Let me walk you to your car. I didn't drive. You shouldn't walk alone. There's some crazy people out there. I'm waiting for a friend. I can walk you to their car. We're actually going to the restaurant there, 5 steps away, and no, not really to any of this, but I don't do strangers walking me to my car. Especially this guy who insists on it. Come on, I can walk you to your car, and if anyone tries to stop you, I've got a 12 gauge in my truck. I've used it on so many people before. I'm not going out to my car, I'm waiting for a friend. I know how handcuffs are used as well. I don't care. Leave me alone. Don't you want to know? Not really. You use the cuffs on the feet, rope to tie the hands up and then hang people. I've done that once or twice. My friend just went in the restaurant. Goodbye. Guy uses other entrance of the restaurant to come in and stand behind me as I'm telling host about the situation. Him and another big dude walk me to my car after oldie leaves. I drove home with 911 typed in the phone. I also didn't drive home immediately because someone followed me. I quickly turned off and drove to a public lit. Turned off all lights and sat until the car drove past. Then I waited, doors locked, for 10 minutes in pitch dark before driving home, intentionally going in circles on the way. We were friends until one day on Valentine's Day he brought out his guitar and sang to me in front of a crowd and ended up asking me to be his girlfriend. I had a boyfriend of 2 years, so I had to say no to him in front of all those people. Thing is, I had mentioned my boyfriend in almost every conversation and he still looked completely shocked that day when I told him I had a boyfriend. He was the nicest guy and I really appreciated our friendship. We stopped talking after that day though. I felt terrible. I have a boyfriend. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. I was at a party when nice guy shows up. He's an old friend of the host who's known for being nice on paper but a complete butthole misogynistic eye roll. I tried to keep my distance from him as I'd had scary run-ins with him before when he was drunk. He noticed my avoidance and would not leave me alone, so when he took off to pee in the bushes, I quickly went inside to the spare bedroom and shut the door behind me so I could have a minute to breathe. Not even 5 minutes later, the door swings wide open. "Hey buddy, I was looking for you." He comes in and latches the door shut behind him. Stomach sinks, then sits down behind me and starts aggressively rubbing my shoulders. "Why are your shoulders so tense, buddy?" After a beat, I stand up and say, "Dude, this is super creepy. I'm out." He responds, "Massages are creepy to you. No wonder you're single. I don't know what needs to happen to a person to make them this oblivious to their own fuckery. Oblivious people don't lock the door behind them." "Let me sleep over because I lived an hour away and we'd been drinking." And he pulls the "Ole, you're really lucky I'm a nice guy. Most guys would force themselves on you right now, but I don't because I'm nice. You're really lucky." Despite us having been normal platonic friends for a few months before this, and me having established a few times that I wasn't interested in anything else with him. Wouldn't leave me alone while I was working. Kept saying it was a shame I had a boyfriend because you're so pretty and I'd treat you right. Over-tipped, like, way too much, because you're so beautiful. I work at a busy music venue, so he basically had to yell all of this at me while I was helping 100 other customers. I eventually had to tell him to buzz off, which just meant he stared at me all night from the crowd, waving at me. After the lights went up, he came over and launched into his "It's a shame you have a boyfriend" bit, so I gave him some shitty excuse and booked it. Why come to a show if you're just going to creep on someone while she's working? Dudes creep on me sometimes, but never as a self-described better than your boyfriend guy. I think it is funny how the default seems to be that every boyfriend is a douche and treats his GF badly, all while they are the ones portraying girls like a trophy. First boyfriend at socially awkward 16. Total a shat who wanted a girl to be a total virgin and innocent but also know how to be a total dirty sub. I was just innocent AF. This guy wanted stuff to happen between us but didn't want to initiate crap. I was so not tuned into sexual stuff and he obviously didn't realize I needed to be hand-led through this. He would hint things to me but they would just fly over my head. Like I went to South America to visit family and I was online talking to him and he said a girl made him an offer. I to this day have no clue what he meant. He never said what she offered him. 16-year-old me was like, what? He then decided to attack me for not giving him a BJ the minute I met him. He started the rant off with guys in my class have done stuff with girls, and I finally clicked and lost it on him. The only thing I got from that relationship was a backbone. Experience is a great teacher. Met a guy at a gathering at a mutual friend's place and ended up getting stuck talking to him all night. Night ends and I don't give it another thought. Couple weeks later he calls my house. I didn't give him my last name or phone number. Since he now has my number, he also knows my address and starts showing up at my house at weird times, sometimes with his equally creepy sister. Fast forward a few years, I haven't lived at home for at least a year. He shows up. Dad answers the door and just tells him I'm not in, not that I don't live there or anything. Later that same night, Dad lets the dog out for a pee before bed. Dog disappears into the backyard, chasing something she really wants to catch. Thinks it's a skunk or something until he hears the gate on the neighbor's fence open and close quickly. Dog has chased a person out of the backyard. My old bedroom window faced our backyard. We don't know for sure, but I think my dog chased that freaking creep out of our yard. Frick you, Adam. That's a good doggo. I considered him a friend. Stayed at his apartment when visiting his town. He slept in the living room, I in the bedroom. When it got late, he started making jokes about how he had hidden the bedroom key and that I should get ready for him. I spent the night half awake and fully dressed from sheer fear. In the morning, I packed and wanted to leave, but he wouldn't let me go without having a goodbye kiss. He physically blocked the door so I couldn't get out. I tried to play it off and somehow managed to squeeze by him without getting kissed, but it was a terrifying experience, and that was the end of our friendship. Well, that is just something else. Holy heck. Teachers of Reddit, what's the most cringe-worthy thing a student has said in class? My dad's a teacher and he said a student once asked him what he did for a living. Teaching 10-12-year-olds is a goldmine of cringy comments I can't pick. If I liked girls, I'd like you. I mean, not that I don't like girls. Well, I don't. Not because I'm gay. Not that gay is bad. But I'm not gay. But I don't like girls. I think because I haven't gotten to puberty yet, made even better by the long pause between each sentence and the confusion on the poor girl's face. I think that poor little boy gets a pass on swearing. When I was in CPR class my freshman year, in a suburb outside of Boston, back before the Red Sox had won their first World Series in 86 years, and Sox fans were rageful and hated the Yankees with more passion than they ever will again. Anyways, class was almost over, and the principal of the school came on the loudspeaker and said we have news in out of New York. During his short pause, I yelled out New York sucks, September, getting ready for playoffs. And then he said 2 planes have crashed into the Twin Towers. Obviously I felt horrible and had no idea that was the day that would later be never forgotten. Oops, I am a jackass. The day before my wedding, a student yelled, "Have a great wedding, Ms. Linguist. Wear a condom." Kids got sense. I'm a teacher who also works at our after school program, so I have kids from across several grades. One of my 3rd grade boys was arguing with another boy when he shouts, "Oh yeah, you can just put your penis in my butt." He was clearly serious and seemed to be under the impression that it was like a frick you type insult. The other boy fell into stunned silence, and some of the 5th grade boys who'd heard started snickering, but were kind enough to tell him, "Dude, don't say that ever again. I'm using this now." My mother runs a small farm with chickens and roosters, among other animals. So, I was volunteering in my daughter's 1st grade class, and they were making words with the ox spelling pattern, like sock, rock, etc. A kid made the word willy, and the teacher said that it was another name for a rooster. My daughter suddenly yelled, "Oh, my grandmother has a willy." A friend of mine had to send a boy home from her kindergarten class for saying frick the police. Kindergarten. Showed my students a picture of the Titanic on its end beside the Eiffel Tower to give an idea of scale. A student asked how they got the big boat to balance while they took the photo. The whole class cracked up and I gently explained things to her. But icebergs can't melt French beams. I remember in high school one girl was giving a presentation on something and kept mentioning the Shiites but pronounced it shites for her whole 10-minute thing. This one kid was laughing his ass off the whole time while he kept asking her wait. Oh. She had no idea and just kept saying with a straight face the shites. In my college biology class last fall, a fellow student asked if cobwebs were living creatures. A student in my college bio class asked if we can get healthy and improve our eyesight by looking at plants. I know him and he is a physics major who have the highest GPA in the physics department. Teacher, Dave, can you please write X and 9 on the whiteboard? Dave, how do you spell X? HexOFC, the H is silent. I asked one of my preschoolers what was for lunch one day during circle time. She told me chopped liver and Jack Daniels. Another time I told a little boy he did a great job using counters to add. He looked me square in the face and said, "Yeah, B, I'm the fricking man." He was 5. Oh, one more. I asked a 5-year-old what rhymes with store. He yelled on the top of his lungs W in the middle of the playground. He sounds like a frickin' champ. A student raised his hand and asked to go to the bathroom during a lecture in Geology 101 with about 200 other students. To be fair, we have had to ask to go to the bathroom since we were about 4 or 5. It's probably so ingrained into his process in school that any deviation from that set standard is a surprise. I have told this before, but it fits. I was teaching English at a university in Japan and I assigned the students the task of translating a Japanese folktale into English and presenting it orally to the class. One young lady chose Momotaro. It's the story of a baby boy that is found when an elderly couple sees a massive peach floating down a river. They retrieve it, cut it open, and find the baby. He then grows up to fight monsters. Momotaro is usually translated as Peach Boy, but this young lady chose to translate it as the boy who came in my peach. She kept saying it over and over. I nearly died trying not to show any reaction. He's not my biological boyfriend. What does that even mean? Means she has a mechanical boyfriend. Halfway through Animal Farm a student says, "Wait a minute, this book has talking animals in it?" No, the French emperor decided to become communist in a barn. I have called several teachers mom on more than 50 occasions through IDK. Did that to my boss yesterday. I want to die. Not a teacher. This was me. A school counselor came to our health class and did a presentation on suicide. He brought a bag of high chews, and whoever answered a question got one. It was a boring presentation, but I wanted a high chew really bad. So when he asked his next question, "Why do you think suicide is illegal?" I raised my hand and answered, "Because no one wants to clean up after you." That's also hilarious in a rather dark way. Just before the end of the class on the day before winter break, I wished my students a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah or Blessed Kwanzaa. My German exchange student asked, "Hanukkah? What is Hanukkah?" I explained it was the Jewish holiday that falls in the winter. She said, "Oh, I've never heard of that. We don't have many Jews in Germany." She was a sweet girl, if a little airheaded sometimes. She wasn't making a joke. My lab partner for my 9th grade year was one of the popular girls. Well, since we had to spend the year together in class, we talked a lot and got somewhat close. Now the table behind us had one of those typical neck beards. He was overweight, unkempt, had greasy hair in a ponytail and oily skin. He was also the type that expected girls to flock to him, and he was crushing hard on the popular girl, but she had a boyfriend so he never said anything. Well, one day popular girl comes in crying, so naturally I ask what's wrong. She tells me that she just found out her boyfriend cheated on her. As soon as Neckbeard heard those words come out of her mouth, he came to our table and started saying how he'd never mistreat her, how a fine lady like her, his words, deserves a gentleman like him, and how he'll beat the crap out of her now ex-boyfriend for her. Once he was done professing his love to her, he grabbed her hand and attempted to kiss it. She quickly pulled back her hand and he started yelling at her, saying things like, "If a gentleman like me can't get to you, what makes you think any other guy will?" and how she's gonna regret turning down a gentleman such as himself. He sounds like an butthole. One girl in an English class a few years ago, 16-17 years old, didn't know the word crater or the existence of the Grand Canyon. That's a problem. My group of friends once had a soccer game with a bunch of teachers. It was a cold, rainy Tuesday night 10 miles north of Stoke. My group of friends did what we usually do post-pay, get changed as quickly as possible, avoiding removing the underwear with the intention of showering once we get home. Our teachers did what they usually do post-pay, get completely butt naked, and use the school shower. Having been able to close my eyes before seeing a multitude of teacher willy, I was lucky enough to see nothing. I did, however, jokingly give one of my teachers the nickname Big John Doe, and it kind of stuck. 3 months later, a friend who wasn't part of the match asked for an explanation of the Big John Doe nickname. I explained it as he got naked in front of me. I saw his willy. It's massive. Next lesson, the above friend and I have Big John Doe as our teacher. That friend decides to ask him, "So KW13 calls you Big John Doe because he saw your willy and it's massive. Care to comment?" I don't know if it's the most awkward, cringe-worthy thing for him, but it was for me. A little girl, kindergarten, drew a picture of herself, then colored the whole page red. When asked why she colored everything in red, the kid said, "That's what I'm going to look like when I blow myself up." Our unexpected. I teach math at college. One semester I'm teaching a bridge course, where students who have previously done poorly in math are given the opportunity to prove their potential the summer before they will begin proper classes. Basically, if they fail the bridge course, they don't get accepted to college. One student is particularly defiant to the idea of this class. She fails to turn in homework, even when directly asked, and offers no excuse or reason. Eventually I directly tell her that she will surely fail the class at her current rate. She gets defensive and claims, "I'm a criminal justice major. I'm going to be a police officer. I don't need math. All I need to do is point and shoot." Needless to say, she failed. Math saved a lot of people's lives that day. Men of Reddit, what's the most pathetic, ridiculous thing another man has done in attempt to assert his dominance over you? I always feel like the guys who refuse to make room for you when walking by in the other direction are trying to assert their dominance and make themselves feel like hot crap. I never understand why people do that. He tried to drink water faster than me. No one drinks water faster than me. No one drinks water like Gaston. Literally last weekend some really drunk dude who I had never once met or interacted with tried to fight me to impress the girls he was with. It was completely ridiculous. And his way of trying to initiate it was just repeatedly body checking me on the dance floor, which I ignored because I thought he was just being drunk and dumb. Turns out one of his friends had to stop him from blindsiding me with a sucker punch to the face, assuming he was able to aim that well. Some people do not mix well with alcohol apparently. I used to attend bar in Milwaukee, and there is nothing that triggers self-conscious whiners more than seeing someone drinking something they don't like. I cannot tell you how many arguments began with some dude, always unsolicited, unprovoked, mind you, feeling compelled to judge and educate other guys about what they're drinking, or not drinking. You drink that, PS, you pee, and it goes downhill from there. No one cares. Drink what you like and shut up. In junior high I remember this one bully that would get on his tiptoes and bow out his chest like a gorilla and get all in your face whenever he felt threatened. It was such a funny stereotype maneuver. A former coworker. He would just stand in the way and refuse to move. Even if he wasn't in the way, he would purposely get in the way. I work in a narrow kitchen, so you can imagine how annoying that could be. At one particular moment I was carrying a bulky 20 pounds box and he decided to do that. I pretended to not see him and barreled into him. He fell over and got incredibly mad at me. Started talking about how I have no muscle. It was pretty funny. It was a display of the most fragile masculinity I've ever seen. One time at a house party, a few of us were talking to some of the girls there, and one of the guys randomly started talking about how he does MMA. Then another guy joined in and those two started wrestling in front of the girls. I don't think their shirts needed to come off either, but what the frick do I know? Taking your shirt off is proper MMA procedure and culture. Leaving them on could have dishonored their whole family. Flick my man T. Generally guys purposely bumping into you when you walk past them, especially if they're with friends. Then they get real aggressive and act like you intentionally bumped into them. I work in a grocery store and sometimes help unload the delivery trucks, and our delivery comes in on what we call cages. Like a 6-foot cage on wheels, and obviously one that's full of toilet paper will be really light and one filled with 2-liter bottles of juice are the heavy ones. The lift that lowers them from the truck has that patterned metal floor and you have to pull the heavy cages hard to get them off. Now I am 5 feet 8 inches and don't have a lot of weight on me, but I can pull these cages off just fine. But there's a guy who's like 6 feet 2 inches and is always trying to show how strong he is. So whenever I am helping and he's there, he always insists he gets the heavy cages and that I get the little guy cages. Everyone agrees he needs to grow up. Guys like that are great though, because you can just chill and let them do all the annoying work if they feel the need to prove something. Talked about the MBA program at his alma mater was superior to where I was getting my MBA. For clarification, he doesn't have and isn't working on an MBA, but wanted to be sure I knew he was better because he went to a school with a perceived better program. A friend tried to make himself look good in front of his crush by literally putting me in a random chokehold for a laugh. Turns out it was because I was talking to her. I had a girlfriend at the time. We were just talking. It wasn't a chokehold though. It was basically just a headlock. So I decided to correct him. I was fairly oblivious and didn't realize this was a failed alpha move. Creeped the crap out of his crush that he would do that out of nowhere, and she stopped talking to him. Apparently she quite liked him up until that point, so he kinda shot himself in the foot. Was out having a drink. Started chatting to the guy next to me when I learned he, too, is a musician. He then tells me you're not a musician. I find it offensive when people tell me they're a musician when they haven't put in the time and dedication that I have. Okay dude, come down off your ego trip. Christ. I had someone stand on their tippy toes to seem taller when we were talking. So when I was in the 8th grade, there was this one kid who hated me for no reason. I was really big for my age, so there was no way this 5 feet 1 inches guy was going to fight me. So he did something so cringy I have no idea what he was going for. I was sitting at lunch with my friends, and this kid walks up to us and spits in my glass of milk and says in a very commanding tone, "Drink." I just stood up and the kid bolted. Got a good laugh out of it with my friend though. Earlier this year my boss asked me to do something, and then leaned over me and said, "You are going to do it." He was like, literally leaning over me because he was 6'8". Dude acted like a cliche high school bully from an 80s movie and was like 40 years old, so I assume he was at some point. Anyways, he quit. I worked in residence life over the summer at a moderately sized college campus. The pay was good, but there were tons of broken furniture and even more piss-stained mattresses. Anyway, I was good enough at doing this that I became sort of an on-site supervisor. The supervisor would tell us what building we would be evaluating emptying that day, and then I would basically take over as soon as we left. One day, we had a 5-story dorm to go through, and all of the mattresses were due to be replaced. I told the group, there were 7 or 8 of us, that the easiest way would be to form a relay down the stairs. 2 people would go to the rooms on the topmost floor and toss them down the steps to the next level, and then they would toss those down the steps, all the way down until the last 2 people on the bottom would put the mattresses in the truck. And then, every floor, we'd swap off, so people could have the easier jobs. We're moving along ridiculously fast under this system. We cleared out a whole floor in just under an hour. And then the supervisor showed up and told me that, no, everyone needed to carry out their own mattresses because he didn't want lazy people on the team. In other words, he wanted everyone to go to a room on the 5th floor and carry a mattress down 5 flights of stairs to the truck, all through the day. He told us that it was an easy job and then proceeded to make a show of lifting up 2 mattresses on his shoulders and jumping down the half-flight steps onto the landing. He did this 2 or 3 times, complete with loud grunts. To this day, I have no idea how he didn't get injured, and then berated us for being lazy. He didn't make us jump, but he made sure that he stayed to watch us do it the right way. We finished the next floor by the end of the day. When asked about what his hobbies are, he responded with hobbies are for children and single women. I work. Was on a 4-hour flight, in a 2-person row. The guy demanded to have full access to the middle armrest. Would push my arm off it if I ever got near it. I was walking to my car after school and this guy getting in his car just yells at me, "You ugly F." Bro, I flipped him off without even looking at him and he yelled B and drove off. How petty do you have to be to tell someone minding their own business that they're ugly? People that shout out of cars are cowards. We once had a candidate come into the interview and legit say he wanted to sit behind the desk because he was going to be asking the questions to decide if he wanted to work with us. I think he'd gotten some bad advice about having confidence. I laughed, but our HR manager flipped her crap. The only time I have ever seen her call security. One guy I know tried to get everyone to whip out their willies and compare sizes, and honestly it came across as one of the most insecure and childish efforts to assert dominance ever, because willy size has nothing to do with dominance. Also, this is the guy when we were getting a house insisted we've all gotta be equals, despite always trying to run things. Maybe he was just a clever gay guy. Had a dude get mad at me for talking to his girl all the time. I was her econ tutor. Was at a party and was given the task of handing out beers to people. This guy flipped a crap, screaming saying he only drink real beer. Dude, it was cold and free. That is the best beer there is. Pee super forcefully directly into the water, so that the lesser males know how powerful my stream is. A guy was mad at me while sitting at a light and was revving his engine. It sounded like he held it at the red line, and there was a big crack sound and smoke started coming out of the front of his car. The dummy blew his engine. That's when you throw your head back and laugh as you slowly accelerate forward in your 2013 Dodge Dart. My neighbor in front of I'm a guy, house had a boyfriend that would literally rip his shirt off and come outside every single time I was in my front yard. It could be 7 AM or midnight, but it wouldn't matter to him. I could be walking to my car and here comes Mr. Globberjim flexing all around his yard. He would immediately go back inside when I went back inside. This went on for almost half a year until one day I saw him hop into his mega lifted truck and drive away, never to be seen again. He did have pretty sweet pecs though. I would have spent a day fricking with him. Go outside for a while and wait for him to come out, then just go back in until he leaves, then do it again. The overly firm handshake is always annoying. I'm not a freak show of strength, but I have a good enough grip that I can get them to back off. What was the cringiest thing you did in your first relationship? Was walking her home anticipating kissing her for the first time at her doorstep and kept licking my lips because I didn't want to kiss her with a dry mouth. Halfway to her house she looks at me and says stop doing that. I realized I probably looked really creepy. Did ya get a kiss though? We were in 7th grade and had been dating for maybe 2 weeks. I printed a marriage certificate and showed it to her the first time she came over to my house. She called her mom and asked to go home immediately. This reminds me of when my first girlfriend gave me divorce papers when we broke up. Well, she said that she thought we would be better off just being friends, so I decided that I needed to do some big grand gesture to prove my love. It always worked in the movies, so what could go wrong? I practiced singing the song for weeks on my ukulele and figured that I would wait until after her softball practice was done and surprise her. I sang You're Beautiful by James Blunt. It's a freaking miracle anyone talked to me after that. We took a break and I posted a video to Creep by Radiohead with the caption for that special someone. Ugh. I almost cringed off my chair writing this. Could have been worse. You could have posted a video to Karma Police by Radiohead with the caption Girls Are Not to Be Trusted by Kevin. Let my mom purchase custom matching airbrushed shirts of 2 people kissing with my girlfriend and my name on them. I'd report my mom for child abuse if she suggested that. After I saw Eric propose to Donna on that 70s show, I went out and got a 25-cent ring from the local Pizza Hut and proposed at school in front of everyone. I was 16. He French kissed me after eating a bacon double cheeseburger with onions and all sorts of other stinky stuff. I told him I had a bad experience with French kissing with a guy before him. Lies. He was my first kiss at V, and I would appreciate if he never did it again. Bonus cringe. I rubbed vapor rub near my eyes to make myself cry when I broke up with him and told him I was overwhelmed and needed to focus on school. I was in 8th grade. Bonus cringe. I rubbed vapor rub near my eyes to make myself cry when I broke up with him and told him I was overwhelmed and needed to focus on school. I was in 8th grade. A+ for production value though. She started to ignore me at school. This was like maybe 1 or 2 weeks after we started dating. I called her house like 6 or 7 times one afternoon after school until her mom picked up, who was basically furious because I had been calling. I explained to her that Alexa was ignoring my calls. I hear in the background, "Alexa, why aren't you answering the phone?" to which she responds, "Because he's weird and he just keeps calling." I hung up the phone and went to my room. I carved her name in my wall with a pen. I still cringe about it to this day. I was too immature to talk about us one day having naughty time, so I'd giggle and say, "Do you know?" I licked her face to be random. God, that hurt to reimagine. Please don't mention hybridized eating utensils. Broke up with her because my best friend told me to. We were perfectly fine together, but I guess I kinda worshipped the guy and his advice. He later tried asking her out when we split. We were all 14-15. What an butthole. The letters I've wrote. Oh, those letters. 15-year-old me thought he was deep and romantic. He wasn't. I hope they don't exist anymore. In the 4th grade I wrote anonymous love letters to a boy I liked and left them in his desk. I saw that he threw them away, so I started writing my name on them. He still threw them in the trash. Was walking her home in our neighborhood. She says her parents aren't home. I say cool, you have the whole house to yourself, and walked back home, wondering if I'd ever get a chance to touch her boobs. He took me to Olive Garden and bought me that meat lovers lasagna. I'm pretty dang sure that's what it was is called. And when we got back to his place I wanted to show him how appreciative I was, so I gave him my first BJ. Turned out I was not ready for that job and threw up the entire lasagna on his penis. God help me, I can't believe I'm finally sharing this story. That is horrible, but I am sure there is a meat lovers joke in there somewhere. I was 17. We had just had a fight. I drove to his house and blasted Scars by Papa Roach from my car and just stood awkwardly at the end of the driveway waiting for him to come out. I really wish this weren't true. Told her I loved her within the first 24 hours at the school parking lot. My friend accidentally whimpered "I love you" as he climaxed whilst losing his virginity. Talk of the school apparently. I hit my girlfriend with my car. It was a complete accident. We are still friends and it is a story that still comes up in conversation every now and then. Please start using the line "yeah, I hit that." I was super shy back in the day and I really liked this guy who had weirdly flirted with me in one of our classes. He told me I looked like some random celebrity when I wore my hair down and how hot she was, so I never wore my hair up again for the entirety of school. I replied later by slipping a note in his locker but didn't sign it. A few days after that, I threw in a t-shirt I thought he would like. He didn't know who it was from until weeks later when he finally wore it to school to see if anyone said something. My BFF at the time didn't. He realized it was me. Super creepy on my end. We ended up dating for a day before we broke up because we were stupid kids. Now, 15 years later, we reconnected and are now married. So, totally worked as planned. Wow, I totally did not see that coming. I love this. My first makeout session with someone was with my first girlfriend. We were in her bedroom, turned out the lights and went at it on the floor of her room. After a while I feel something wet on my face. I didn't want to stop so I just ignored it and carried on. She notices it too and decides to turn on the light because something is really wet on our faces. Light comes on and turns out I'd had a massive nosebleed and there was blood everywhere. I was covered in it. She was covered in it and there were blood stains all over her room. If that wasn't embarrassing enough, when she went to the bathroom to clean up, her mum caught her in the hallway. She sees the blood and immediately screams. Her assumption was that I was beating her daughter up and I get chucked out the house. Took a long time and explaining for me to show my face there again. Also lost my virginity to the same girl to Cool and the Gangs celebrate. That was cringy as heck too. I let him finger me at school with no idea the people at the next table could see. After the first date of going to the movies, I never put my arm around her because I was too scared. We sat in my driveway, and she didn't say goodnight because she was waiting for me to kiss her. I did nothing, so she finally kissed me. In defense mode, I lick my lips all the way around with my tongue like Scooby-Doo does with the cotton candy in the theme song intro. I even did the "Ree kill me." Had to save this comment LMFAO. I got us matching dog tags with our anniversary on it after dating for around 6 months and would secretly get very sad when he wouldn't wear his. Declined staying the night because I was, and I quote, wearing a skirt and didn't want it to ride up while I was sleeping. I used to take laps around the playground and slap stickers on her ass. I don't know what I was thinking. Sounds like some weird ass anime crap. Tried to defend her honor. I got the crap kicked out of me by 3 guys. I earned cred for taking a beating, but she thought we should just be friends after witnessing that. TBH, there's worse things to have 3 guys beat the crap out of you for. That was a losing battle from the start unless you're some Jackie Chan looking punk lol. We finally had done it when at a party at my friend's house whose parents were home. The mother knocked on the door and said, "What is going on?" We did not stop. Ugh. I had honestly forgotten this until I read this question. First date to a movie. We see Titanic. Because that can only end well. We, as horny youngsters, aren't watching the movie, but instead making out and moaning in probably the 3rd row of a packed theater. I'd never made out before. I assumed moaning was involved. Ugh, so cringy and gross. My first kiss was in the movies at the Bounty Hunter. It was interesting because I also got my first BJ a few minutes later in the same spot. I remember 4 things. 1. My parents and her parents were 2 rows in front of us. 2. The looks of disgust on the old couple's faces 4 seats down. 3. She swallowed and it was way too much sensation for 16-year-old me. 3. Gerard Butler was in it. A girl that I was about to start dating mentioned she really wanted to go to New Zealand at some point in her life. To a group of people, not even just to me. So I immediately priced plane tickets and lodgings to New Zealand for a honeymoon. Then, unbelievably, before we had actually started dating, I told her I had priced our honeymoon. My defense was that if things did work out, New Zealand was so expensive I'd have to start saving then. We still dated, but only for about 2 months and neither of us have been to New Zealand. I was so nervous on the way home. Being 14, his dad drove us to my house to drop me off. I leaned over to kiss him on the cheek. A quick peck and then I threw up his mom's fajitas all over myself. started dating 3 months before sophomore year ended. Once summer started I completely ghosted her. Skipped the first week of junior year. I thought we were still together. You can imagine how she reacted when I approached her for a kiss. The shame is still real to this day. Made an account just so I could finally tell this cringe-worthy story. High school girlfriend and I used to make out on her bed with the door locked while her parents were out there under the impression we're studying. Heavy kissing and at some point she says cut it out, your breath stinks. Start kissing her neck and she slowly wraps her legs around my thigh. Couple minutes later starts breathing heavily. Couple minutes after that her legs tighten around my thigh. Couple minutes after that, she suddenly goes rigid. Eyes roll up till I see whites. Rapid breathing. Exhaling heavily. I panic. And this is my retarded thought process. Since all the blood's left my brain, she's choking. I should give her CPR. But she said no kissing her mouth. So I close my lips around her nose and blow it like a trumpet. She starts coughing immediately, but she's too polite to cuss me out. Says she needs a drink of water and leaves the room. We continued to go out for 6 years after that. This was with a girl I dated in high school. My dad was getting drunk at a block party so I got the idea to take his ski boat and go for a romantic boat ride. So we park in the middle of the lake, start making out and stuff. We notice our feet getting wet. The boat was sinking so I start freaking out, bailing water out with cups, sopping it up with my shirt and wringing it out of the boat, just freaking panicking. Right after I accept the fate of my dad's $12,000 inboard motor ski boat and calm down, I remember that I didn't put back the drain plug before dropping it in the water, so I replaced it, drove back. Told my first real GF that I'm glad she wasn't the most beautiful girl in the world so I didn't have to worry about every guy trying to steal her. Speech 100. I met the love of my life at age 17, aka I started getting my brains fricked out for the first time. She was not shy talking about her prior boyfriend who had a super huge willy that she claimed was very painful. Of course there were other details about their relationship that she shared too, and she was complicated and we had a lot of fights which I couldn't get my head around. At some point I decided it would be a good idea for him and me to talk and compare notes. So I wrote him a letter proposing this. Mutual friends reported that he was utterly flabbergasted by this. But he approached me and said, "What would you like to talk about?" I think I babbled for 20 minutes after that, but I have no further recollection. Looking back, what the heck was I thinking? The entire 20 minutes you were thinking about his huge hog. I lost my virginity to my first girlfriend. I was about 16 at the time and was invited over to stay the night because her dad was on a business trip. I was excited because we have talked a bunch about doing it and I was ready to finally lose my virginity. I get to her house and we are straight to action. She pulls down my pants and my willy is as limp as top ramen noodle. She sucked me off for about 30 minutes until I could get at least half a chub. I put it in missionary and started humping. I didn't really know what to do with my hands and at the time I knew that people pull hair during naught time. So I I stare at her missionary position and take 2 handfuls of her hair on both sides and just pull in a downward thrust while I'm humping. I sometimes think of this moment and want to disappear, lol. A guy almost completely erased this memory. So I was young and I had my first boyfriend. We were experimenting and I really wanted him to think my pee tasted nice. So I would literally rub strawberry freaking flavored lip gloss in my vagina. There's no way he didn't know. I thought it was such genius idea that I had to share it with my fellow women. So I wrote it down and passed a note in class to one of my friends. It dropped on the floor and all the boys read it and screamed laughing. Strawberry Lips was my new name and I cried for a week. Photographers who do school picture days, what are your most cringe-worthy strange stories of your career? I'm not a photographer but I probably gave the one who took my 2nd grade school photo a weird feeling. I just moved from a third world country and didn't speak a lick of English. I had no idea what a soda can was, much less the hallowed tradition of picture day. So when my class was directed to shuffle down the hall in an orderly line to the gym, and I saw all those abstracty bluish background canvases that looked like X-ray images all over the gym, and that we were all going towards a spot directly in front of it, one at a time, in this solemn fashion, I thought we were all, one by one, having a medical procedure done to us, and that's why I look a little teary and very, very stoic in my 2nd grade photo. Go to dress my little boy up nice for surgery day. I did senior portraits and this really nerdy looking kid wanted photos with his 2 samurai swords. I tried my best to make it look cool but I just couldn't. Another senior did couples photos with her boyfriend. They specifically earnestly requested a pose where the girl posed all cute on one side of the couch, while the boy sat on the other side of the couch, staring at her while stroking his beard. That one didn't turn out well either. Every awful school photo becomes timeless. You created art, and you should be proud of it. Spent 15 minutes with a guy because he blinked every time I took the photo. I tried everything in my book, making him close and open his eyes before snapping the picture, delaying the flash, shooting without flash, taking the picture while talking to him so he'll be distracted. Nothing worked. Ended up taking his picture with a cell phone, because apparently what made him close his eyes was the shutter mirror sound. Somewhere out there is a kid with a story about how he made his school picture last 15 minutes cause he kept closing his eyes on purpose. When I was having my graduation portrait taken, the photographer pulled me aside afterwards and for like 30 minutes was talking about all this new Photoshop and airbrush techniques they could do now. I played along, being polite. I didn't really care, but he seemed super hyped about it and how cool it was. Turns out it was his subtle way of asking me what I thought if he airbrushed out my pimples. I had pretty awful acne at the time. Like, holy crap, Lunalander couldn't find a decent spot to put down in. He eventually gave up and I left thinking to myself how weird that dude was. I got the pictures a few weeks later. He did a good job and completely airbrushed everything out. I showed my dad who took one look and said, "Who the frick is that?" They airbrushed my freckles off my face for my senior portraits. Before that I was always told they were cute. Knocked my confidence down a peg. I work as a photographer. One of the people I work with was shooting a little girl per request of mom. She tried like heck to make her smile but she refused. She wasn't rude or upset, just very shy and quiet and uncomfortable taking photos. Mom told the photographer that a week prior the photographer at her school told her she had a weird funny ugly looking smile and to learn to smile better. Since then the little girl refused to smile in any picture. Mom brought her in to see if our photographers could change that. I think she got some decent shots but man, I remember what it was like getting shut down like that as a kid. It was devastating. In his freshman year my brother, a white dude, switched his picture card with an Asian friend of his. They figured that the picture guy would notice that it was weird that a white guy would have an obviously Chinese name, and they would tell them to switch back. Nope. For the rest of his time in high school on every form and computer system my brother was an Asian guy. Confused the heck out of substitute teachers. This somehow happened to a few kids in my school. Our pictures were swapped with the primary kids across the road. I was a little blonde 6-year girl for about 3 months. Can we do funny? When I was a school photographer, to amuse myself I tried to give each kid in class a unique word to say. Fuzzy puppies, funky monkeys, etc, etc. So I get this little girl at my chair. She's got the thickest glasses I've seen, an overbite, and as pale as a vampire. But whatever, a kid is a kid. So I say, okay, say fuzzy kitties. And she gives me the most irritated look I've ever seen. I'm allergic to kitties. Like it was the dumbest thing anyone had ever said to her, and she felt sorry for how dumb I was. I was photographing a 3rd grade class and I got to an adorable little boy and went through my list of instructions. Now turn your head here, shoulders here, oopsie, your right arm there, wait, please move your right arm. He gave me the saddest little look and showed me the stub on his right shoulder. He had no right arm. I felt like a terrible person. We were doing photos at a special needs high school. Guy comes up in a windbreaker, corduroy high water pants, velcro tennis shoes and the thickest glasses I've ever seen. I asked him whose class he was in so I could make sure he was in the right group and he said he wasn't a student. He worked there. Haha, that's hilarious. That makes me remember of when I was in elementary school. My mother volunteered to come do surveillance at school during lunch breaks, and the 6th graders kicked her out of the class and called her names because they thought she was a student. She ended up yanking 2 of them by the ears and dragging their asses to the principal's office. Photographed a class of 1 and 2-year-olds. I mostly did preschool. Their teacher had written herself thank you notes as if they were coming from the pre-verbal children. Like, "Dear Ms. Judy, thank you for changing my diaper. Dear Ms. Judy, thank you for giving me snacks every day." She had written one for every kid and hung them up all over her wall. Later, as I was trying to navigate my tripod through a hallway, she felt I was in her way and threatened to bash my face in with a door. "Dear Ms. Judy, thank you for not murdering me." Some kid showed up in a fursuit, like, full-on fursuit, a bright blue fox, and he ended up having a half-hour-long argument with the photographer and assistant principal over it. My school has a kid who shows up in a fursuit every day and doesn't take it off, and for some reason nobody questions it. Maybe I'm just more crazy than I originally thought. So I'm in kindergarten getting my picture taken. 1980. The flashbulb pops and explodes, catches that umbrella thing on fire. All the teachers scream and I crap my pants. Awkward when I get picked up by mom wearing underoos and holding a plastic bag. But the teacher said I was brave. A simpler times. You handled that situation the same way I would today. I do Santa photography. Had a 12-year-old boy come in with his family. He was extremely excited to meet Santa. So excited, he decided to pee his pants as I was setting the shot up. Didn't see until I took the first photo. With some clever hand positioning I was able to hide it for the most part. Parents didn't even notice. I worked for a company that did this. Didn't work there long, but the worst thing I encountered was multiple notes on the forms parents sent back to us saying, "Don't make my child smile," or "They have a bad smile, don't make them smile." How terrible is it to tell strangers you hate your child's smile? I understand some didn't want big toothy grins because they were missing teeth, but that's part of childhood. They'll never be like that again. Why not enjoy it? I'm a studio photographer and this is one of the most heartbreaking parts of the job. Worse than telling strangers is when they let their kids hear it. I've seen way too many 5-year-olds having sobbing breakdowns because they don't know another smile. Mom, I'm sorry for one lifetime. It was for a middle school. There was this young lady having her portraits done. She wasn't doing anything bad in hindsight. She was just very well developed for her age and the shirt she was wearing had a little cleavage. I'm sure her parents sent her out of the house just fine, and she probably felt very pretty and confident. Young lady, having photos done, no big deal. Class portrait time. Out of nowhere this middle-aged female school administrator comes up to her. She yanks her out of the photo and chastises her for her outfit. Then she makes her wear this oversized baggy t-shirt and we redo the photo. I can only imagine what this girl was going through. Kid I went to high school with showed up on picture day wearing a giant afro wig. He had worn a wig the year before but it wasn't as noticeable, so our senior year he decided to push it. These weren't yearbook shots, just schoolites. He gets to the front of the line and the photographer tells him to take the wig off. He argues it was his real hair and even breaks out the "my dad is black" argument. Finally the guy just lets him take the picture with the wig on. Guy at my school had a reverse mohawk, which is where you shave a line down the middle. The photographer actually asked him if he'd like to wear a hat. Our grade school principal got a pink inverted mohawk one year at a school assembly because we met our reading goal for the year. Really cool principal. I asked a 4th grader if she hurt her foot. I have a prosthetic leg. She was wearing sandals and sure enough, rubber foot. I asked a 7th grader to sit up straight. Spinal problems. His doctor bought a copy of the photo as a before shot for a textbook he was writing. Whatever the doctor did, it worked like a charm. A kid told my assistant that they ate their pet rabbit the night before. I asked a kid to sit down. He sat down on the floor. I told him, not on the floor, on the chair. Please point your knees at the computer. He got up and touched his knee to the computer. I said, no, sit on the chair and turn your knees, point them at the computer. I asked a kid if they wanted their hoodie to be in the picture. Number, okay, take your hoodie off. No. Do you want your hoodie in the picture? Number, if you don't want your hoodie to be in the picture, you have to take it off or it will be in the picture. Oh, I want my hoodie in the picture. I tapped a kid on the shoulder from behind and asked where the teacher was. She was the teacher, and I had known her for almost 20 years by that point. Asked a teacher if a severely disabled student could sit by themselves on the bench. The student couldn't and there was a pretty hard thump on the gym floor. Woody kid was stoned off at school. I'll try to remember some stories later, but there was one shoot I'll never forget. First off, we were expected to do 3 sets of pictures for each student. 1 for the yearbook, tux for boys, drape for girls, 1 for cap and gown, and 1 set of casuals. Casuals usually involved hand poses with a table. We'd bring in some cutesy stuff, like holding a rose up to your shoulder, or like full body pictures meant to show off their clothes. So a girl comes in, she looks out of it, like really not connected to the world. I take the yearbook pics, I take the cap and gown, all the while her smiles are so obviously faked and her eyes are just gone. It's okay, I was used to dealing with students who didn't want their picture taken. I'm pretty good at loosening them up and making them laugh, but she was barely paying attention to me. She seemed really distracted. I tell her to change into her regular clothes to take her casuals and she's like okay, all monotone. She comes back and has huge bandages on her arms. Clearly this poor girl had tried to kill herself rather recently and was just taking these pictures out of obligation or something. Every casual photo I'd take of her would have those bandages and there would be no mistaking why they were there. Instead of taking them and having them show up in the proofs that would go out to the parents, I tell her, okay, you're good. Thanks for coming, and she just shrugs and leaves, just as apathetic as before. This was like 6 years ago and I still think about her sometimes and I hope she's happy now. Probably the most awkward moment I had was working with LifeTouch and photographing a girl's senior portrait when I was 23. She went on and on about how she was 16 and skipped a grade because she was so smart. I told her that was good for her but could be hard when it came to college. She responded with a story of her spring break in Mexico where she did a wet t-shirt contest and was in the top 3 contestants. Most awkward conversation I've ever had doing senior portraits. In the top 3 means I got 3rd. Being a young female photographer, probably having to photograph male high school seniors is the most awkward. I've been asked out on dates, hit on, winked at, and straight up had any and all requests for them to smile nicely, stop goofing around or take their hat off ignored. In photographer, there was a very small country mountain high school we used to take senior pictures at every year. Only about 15 or 20 seniors each year, but there was no other photo studio or services for a few hours drive. So when we came to town to take pictures, it was a big deal. I did several sessions where I was taking entire family photos, newborn baby pictures, and bridal portraits during their senior portrait sessions. Yes, bridal portraits. Some were for upcoming weddings, but most were for the wedding and or children they had already had during their junior year that they had no other pictures for. Oh my. When I was in grade school, a photographer kept telling me to open my eyes even though my eyes were open. I didn't know any better, so I was struggling to open them super wide while having a smile. Now that I'm older, I feel like he was just making a racist remark since I'm Asian. Had a similar thing happen to me, except I'm only slightly Asian. I asked a kid to please look at the camera like 3 times. Then I realized he had a lazy eye. Dang. Ha, I had a lazy eye. Have had multiple surgeries to correct it, and this happened to me in like 2nd grade. My teacher butted in telling him about my lazy eye and he tried to apologize. I didn't care though because picture day meant I got out of doing a little bit of work. A guy at my school demanded to have a picture of him with a Microsoft painted spacesuit on as his senior photo, but the teachers wouldn't let him. So he paid extra to have himself as an ad in the final part of the yearbook, with a photo of him in a spacesuit. The photographer accidentally overwrote my picture with a picture of my boyfriend. Picture of boyfriend followed me around all through senior year. Obligatory. I am not a photographer, but my senior year in high school I almost ended up with my boyfriend's picture above my name in the yearbook instead of my own. We had to go in for pictures about a week before school started at a specific time depending on last name. So A names went at 10, B names at 10:30, and so on. My last name and my boyfriend's started with the same letter. We lined up together, and the lady gave us our barcode cards with our names. I got my picture taken, and then waited just outside the picture area for my boyfriend. I watched as the photographer neglected to scan my boyfriend's card, took the picture, overwriting my picture, realized the mistake, scanned the correct card, and took the picture again. I asked him if I needed to do my picture again, but he waved me away. A few weeks after school starts, we got our ID cards. Well, everyone but me. One of my friends was an office aide, and he was cracking up every time he looked at me at lunch. When asked why, he said, "You'll see, I was called to the office and shown my ID card, which had my boyfriend's picture on it. They wouldn't let me just take it, and said I had to do picture retakes." Throughout the year, the picture of my boyfriend was associated with my name in the school's computer system. I got a lot of double takes from new teachers who would look at the name and picture when calling roll, and then see me and be confused. Somehow my retake picture ended up on my ID but nowhere else. The yearbook only ended up with my correct picture because I had a friend on yearbook staff who caught the mistake before it went to print. The picture company did send me free copies of both my pictures and the ones of my boyfriend though, which was nice. The Wicked Witch of the West is coming to steal all of your Halloween candy. Like this video in 2.1 seconds or she'll take all of it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.